He's alright.
Yeah, she's good.
Colin, we just got
It's huge!
This was a team effort, boys. Holy
Yes! He's hard! Oh, dude! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Shoot him! Shoot him! You got him! Don't shoot! Don't shoot! What's up, sportsmen? Welcome back to the Northwoods. Today we're doing a video all about introduction to musky fishing for all you beginners out there who have just gotten into the sport recently or are looking to get into it maybe this upcoming season. We're in central Wisconsin, so unfortunately musky is not open for us yet, but we're getting all jittery about it.
got a fever.
Yeah, we have
nerves are kicking in.
They are. But today, we're just gonna go over some basics to the sport for everyone who's just looking to get into it. So that way you can be prepared for this season, and maybe some of the information we give you can help put you on your first or second or third muskie, or however many muskies you've caught, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. So, let's get into it, boys. So I think the most important thing before you dive into baits and rods and all that stuff is you gotta have the tools to keep the fish safe and healthy before you release it, because most fish that you catch you'll have to release. The first tool that you will need are pliers. Whether you have the long
Big ones.
Big pliers.
You want big ones for muskies.
You do want big ones. I'm cheap, but I have these decent sized Berkeley pliers. They're they're big walleye pliers, so they do the job. And then I have this little gadget here that's, yeah, it's not the greatest, but it does its job. So you can keep your hand away from the fish's mouth. So the last thing you want to do is when you're trying to unhook a muskie, it shakes and either digs a tooth or a treble hook in your hand.
Happened more times than I'd like to admit.
And that's why you have the big ones?
Yep, that is why I have the big ones. When I first started, I didn't really know exactly what kind of pliers to use, so I just grabbed the first ones I saw in our garage in the toolbox, and I decided, hey, maybe these will work. And yeah, it was not the best choice. So I did my research and I realized that having pliers with a long nose was definitely the way to go. And as you can see, I have two pairs in case one decides to take a crap on me and it breaks or something like that, and then I have an extra. And you can get different kinds. This one has just the straight nose, this one has the bent one to get a little bit more leverage if you want to pull a hook out. It doesn't really matter, whatever your preference is, but yeah, big pliers. You want to have big pliers 100% of the time.
Yeah, I've been lucky having Luke here most of the time. I pretty much can just use his pliers instead of mine. But for whenever I'm on my own, I've got these. I've also been lucky that a lot of the muskies unhook themselves.
Yeah, when they head shake in the net, hook pops out.
Yep.
Every musky fisherman gets happy when that happens.
Yes, less work for me.
Yep.
But yeah, so definitely tool number one, pliers. But the next important tool you're gonna want is a hook sharpener.
Dull hooks are not a good scenario when you're musky fishing. A lot of musky fishermen lose way more fish than they like because little do they know that their hooks were dull. When you're first starting out, and I know a lot of people who have first been starting out with musky fishing and they just grab whatever lure they see and then they go fishing. The very first thing you do when you grab a lure, whether it's brand new straight out of the box or if you've been using it for the past 6 hours, is you sharpen the hooks. Like this lure right here, I have not casted it, at least to try to catch a fish. We just put it in the water a little bit ago to see what it looks like, but before I fish this at all, I'm going to sharpen the hooks. Even though it was just out of the box, these hooks are still dull. And the way you can test to see if the hooks are dull is you can drag the hook along your fingernail, and if it doesn't get stuck, if it just slides, the hook's pretty dang dull. As you can see, it's not getting stuck whatsoever. So you can take your hook sharpener like this, and you sharpen your hooks. You don't want to pull downwards because that's going to take away more material than you want. You push towards the outside of the hook, and you don't have to do it very much, just a gentle stroke. And there. Now that hook, look at that, it's sticking. I'm barely even pushing it, it's getting stuck on my fingernail. Way, way sharper. I have lost way too many fish in my musky fishing career, all because I did not know that my hooks were dull. And once I realized that, hey, that's pretty stupid to not sharpen your hooks, get yourself a hook sharpener. And as you can see with Collins, there are many different sizes. I prefer the big ones because musky lures have much bigger hooks, so it's a lot easier to sharpen them.
Size does matter with hook sharpeners. I have the smaller one, and it does not sharpen my musky size hooks nearly as effectively as his bigger one. This one works much better for smaller like bass lures and walleye lures, but or at least for musky size hooks, you're gonna want the bigger ones.
Yeah, anybody who's getting into musky fishing, 100%, one of the first things you should buy is pliers, hook sharpener, because you're gonna want to sharpen every single one of the hooks on all your lures before you even think about casting that in hopes of catching a fish. You can find hook sharpeners anywhere in a bait shop. They should have all sorts of different kinds of brands and different sizes. These, I don't know if they'd have big musky ones at your local bait shop. We got these at the musky shop in Minocqua. But you can also make them homemade. These are just 2 little chainsaw files, shrink wrapped, and then you can actually pull it apart. I gotta fix it, but it's just glued right there at the end, and then you can put it on a lathe or whatever you want. Just make a handle, stick it in there, and if you secure it however you want, then boom, you got a hook sharpener.
Must have.
100% must have.
The next recommended tools we got are mouth spreaders
And screwdrivers.
So mouth spreaders, you're gonna want a pair in case there's the event that you catch a big muskie or even a pike and they refuse to open their mouth when you're trying to get the lure out. These things, when you basically get them ready to go, they force a fish's mouth open. So it doesn't like hurt them or anything, but it keeps their mouth open so that way you can get a lure out. There was one time we were ice fishing and we had a pike that would not open its mouth, and these things have teeth, so they cut up your hands. I put on a pair of gloves to open up its mouth and it shredded my gloves. It just shredded my gloves. So I wish I had a mouth spreader that day, and ever since I've always had a mouth spreader in my tackle box.
Alright, next up, screwdrivers. Any kind of screwdriver will work, preferably smaller ones or whatever size that you think would be reasonable. These are 2 Phillips heads. I have
That's a flathead.
Alright, so the next tool you're going to want in your arsenal is a pair of screwdrivers. Any size will work, whatever size you think is reasonable. These are 2 flatheads. I do have a couple Phillips heads back at home. I don't have them with me, but one thing you're going to want with screwdrivers is you can use them to tighten up any loose bolts that happen on your reel, or not bolts, but screws. I've had that too many times where I'm casting and then all of a sudden I feel something rubbing along my hand and it's one of these little screws coming out. And you don't want that, because if you lose one, little screws, these are all usually Phillips heads. Yeah, if you lose one of those, it's not going to be a good time, because your reel could potentially come apart on you when you're fighting a fish, and you really do not want that. So have screwdrivers with you. You can tighten that stuff up, and of course, to tighten up anything loose that's on your boat or whatever you're using to fish. So yeah, screwdrivers, good thing to have.
Show it to the camera.
The mouth spreader got me.
Yeah, bring Band-Aids too.
Yeah, that's the next
First
topic.
aid, first aid.
That's the next
Yeah.
topic.
Oh!
'Cause it's still recovering.
Guess who brought a first aid
Yeah, the
kit?
next topic. First aid kit.
Let's talk about like little incidences we have cut with our hands.
I was gonna say there's always gonna be a time when a muskie will cut your fingers up, or you get a hook in your hand, or just bites you in general while you're trying to get a hook out, because maybe you don't have long nosed pliers. So you're gonna want first aid to help bandage up any wounds you get out on the water, like this one.
It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, because it is 100% inevitable. You are going to cut yourself.
Yes.
I can't even remember how many times I've had musky teeth or their gill plates slice my hands open when you're trying to pull a hook out or kick them out of the net or measure them or anything like that. Their teeth are extremely sharp, so are their gill plates. So yeah, have first aid with bandages, gauze, any of that kind of stuff in it.
A way to possibly prevent muskies or even big pike from cutting up your hands while you're holding them by the gills is having a pair of angling gloves. These things will help prevent your fingers from being sliced by their gill plates. I mean, I'm 50-50 when it comes to gloves and muskies. Like half the times I'll put them on, half the times I'll just straight up throw my hand in without a glove on. But almost every time I don't use gloves, my hands get cut up. And I remember last season I had one muskie cut up each and every single one of my fingers, and they were bleeding profusely because of their slime. It just causes you to keep on bleeding. So gloves are definitely a thing to help save your hands, and they just give you confidence in holding the fish, because they're pretty grippy too.
Yeah, if you are not comfortable with holding a fish with your bare hands, but you are with gloves, definitely have a pair of gloves with you. They come in handy in a lot more ways than you think.
Yes, and they can help protect the fish, as maybe you'll drop it because you're a little nervous holding it without gloves. They just give you that extra bit of confidence in holding them, and so maybe you're not going to drop them, or they don't just keep shaking and scratching up your hands. So definitely have first aid and gloves with you.
Right,
So the next thing you're going to want when it comes to musky fishing is some sort of way to measure the fish. We like having bump boards. These ones are from Musky Bumper, but you can use anything like a tape measure or a tape measuring, or just any sort of rope with measurement. You can use a yardstick if you really wanted to. But we like bump boards because they're a little collapsible. They go out to 60 inches long, and they have this great handle so you can carry it around. And basically what you do, actually just use these as laid out. Basically, when you lay a fish up against it, you bump its nose.
The head goes right here.
And then you extend their tail all the way along and kind of pinch it a little bit to get an exact measurement. And it goes all the way down to a 1/4 inch. So like 48 1/4, 48 1/2.
47 and a half. That's where mine went.
That's what Matt's been on, 47
And
1/2.
one thing you're going to want to do before you decide to measure a fish is get this thing wet, because this plastic is kind of abrasive. So you can run your hand along it and feel that there's little ridges and whatnot like that. It's kind of like really, really smooth sandpaper, and that can damage a fish's skin. So you want to get this a little bit wet before you put a fish down. And you can get these in 2 different sizes, as you saw with Colin's. His is a little bit narrower than mine.
There's actually even one size smaller than this.
Yep, his is a little bit narrower. There's a size that goes about halfway through here. And this is honestly just going to be safer on the fish, because let's say if you've just got like a roll-up tape measure and you lay that on the ground, you're going to be laying the fish on the ground. They're going to be getting sticks and rocks and whatnot rubbing against their scales, and that can harm them.
Yes.
So this is a smooth surface, nice and flat.
These things also do float if they're dropped in the water.
Yep. They can lay on this, and you can securely hold the fish. I would say probably have it like this. Whoops. Yeah, you can get them with this nose stopper on either side, whatever side you like, having your hand in the gills. I prefer mine on this side, actually. Yeah, I hold mine with right hand usually and lift the fish up like this. But let's say if you can't, you can always plug the fish upside down, grab it with this hand, and lift it up like this for a picture. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, bump boards are a great tool, but you don't necessarily need one 100% of the time. And I know a lot of musky fishermen don't even like to measure fish unless they're of a certain size. A lot of guys, they've caught way too many mid-30s to 40s inch fish. They're only going to measure if they think it's over 50 inches. So but yeah, like Colin and I, we prefer to measure most of our fish.
Yes.
And when you do measure a fish, make sure it's out of the water the least amount of time.
Yes.
So yeah, measure it, get a quick picture, get it back in the water so it can swim off safely and live another day. So the next topic we're going to talk about is actually net selection. Unfortunately, Colin and I both do not have our nets with us because we couldn't fit them in the vehicles, bringing all of our other gear up. But my net is a Beckman net. It is...
No, mine, I have the Beckman, you got the Drifter.
Restart. You have the Beckman net, I have the Drifter net. My net is absolutely massive. It's like, I think it's 48 inches across and then 50 some inches deep. One of the biggest nets I've ever seen. So plenty big enough to get a muskie. And the reason I prefer a big net like that is because I've really done most of my muskie fishing from shore up to this point until I get fishing out of my boat more. And from shore, it's really hard. Let's say if I'm down here on the shore with a rod in my hand and I'm reefing in a muskie like this and trying to get down here to get it in the net. If I have a really big net, that muskie can just come right over the top of it and just lay in nicely, and I can just scoop it right up. And with a smaller net, you would not be able to do that, or at least you'd have a lot more trouble doing it. So,
and having a smaller net, trying to squeeze a muskie, or at least a big muskie into it, can even hurt the fish.
Yep. Not a good choice.
Or even half the times that fish should just do one flop, it's out of the net, and maybe then it shakes the hook and it's gone. You're gonna want that big net for security.
Yep.
Mine's doesn't have as big of a basket.
Nope, but yours is deeper. Your net goes deeper.
Yeah, the netting goes deeper. We prefer to have our nets with like the rubberized coating around.
Yep. His has that. Mine does not. But I mean,
it works either way. When you have the rubberized coating, at least the hooks can't dig themselves into the net, but they wrap up a lot easier.
It's a little bit easier on their scales too.
And it is a little easier on their scales. But yeah, so you're gonna want a bigger net over a smaller one to help protect the fish and to help save yourself from losing that fish, trying to put it in the net.
Yeah, nets can range anywhere from $150 to $300 and some dollars, but I mean they're definitely worth the investment.
They are a must-have.
Yeah,
yes.
you want a net. You don't want to be out there fishing and hook the biggest fish of your life and not have a net to land it,
or
try to grab
have
it with
to
your
hand
hands.
land it.
Yeah, because then that's only going to lead to disaster of either you getting injured or the fish getting injured.
Or the fish is getting away.
Yep, 100%.
All right, so now that you've kind of got the basics down for like tools and stuff that you'll need, the next big step is your rod and reel selection. Right here, I have a St. Croix Mojo Musky rod. It is their heavy 8-foot rod with an Abu Garcia Revel Toro Beast for the reel.
Hold that still. There we go.
St. Croix Mojo Musky 8-foot. The lure weight range is 3 to 8 ounces, and then the line range I think it's somewhere to 65. No, it's 40 to 80. Well, anyways, basically, what you're looking for in a rod is you're looking for longer rods to get further casts, and so you can get better figure eights going on, whether you're at shore or off a boat. Unfortunately, my car can't hold very long rods, so I'm kind of limited to 8-foot or telescopic and 2-piece rods. So that's kind of where I went into. That's why I got the 8-foot model of the St. Croix. But for reel selection, I got the Abu Garcia Revo Toro Beast. It's the new model. It's the high-speed one. It comes with a paddle handle, but eventually I'll outfit it with a power handle. That'll come with time. But for reels, I'm just looking for a reel that can support heavier line and that can, or higher speed. So, you know, you want long. I think this thing has 34 inches per crank, so you're looking to reel in a decent amount of line with each crank. So that way you can pull these big baits, like big blades, keep those blades spinning, and just pull them long distances, like over weed beds, over rocks, so that a fish is more enticed to chase after it or to attack it. So that's what I kind of consider when looking at a reel like this. Plus, it is very smooth casting. Now, Daniel.
Okay. All right. Well, fortunately enough, my car does fit a 9-foot rod. So here I have the 9-foot heavy BattleTech, and with the Daiwa Alexa 400 size. You kind of want a bigger size reel just so it holds enough line to, I guess, cast and fight a fish. But yeah,
You
last
see the
year,
specs.
oh yeah, spec. Where is it? There it is.
Right there.
Focus it down, my stuff there. Last year I had my dad's old Musky set up, which sadly stopped working, so I splurged and got a good setup. The Daiwa Alexa 400, the 6:3 to 1 gear ratio. What's yours, Kyle?
Oh, I think it's
6.2 to 1.
6.2 to 1? Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, there it is, yeah.
And what do we got going on over here?
All right, unfortunately I do not have my rod with me. Is getting a few things repaired on it, but I have a Mojo Musky just like Colin's. Mine is a year previously, so it's the previous year's model. It is the 8'6" model, so 6 inches longer than his. I don't remember the exact specs on it, but it's, yeah, exact same to yours. Extra heavy power and whatnot. So yeah, you're gonna want, mine's the extra heavy power.
Oh, so you're going further?
8'6" is the extra heavy.
Oh, I thought you had the 3 to 8 ounce. Oh, I'm dumb.
Mine's a little bit bigger. But yeah, you're gonna want a big rod like that. Any case, whatever brand you decide to get, you're gonna want a big, strong, heavy rod. So not only that you can cast the big lures that you want to use to catch those big fish, but you can really be confident in your hook set and whatnot when you set those hooks deep into their mouths. And yeah, that's what I have for my musky rod. I don't have that with me right now, but once I do have it, you will see it in more videos to come in the future. And then my reel is also an Abu Garcia Revo Toro Beast, slightly older than what Colin's model is. This is the high-speed model, 6.2 to 1 gear ratio, 8 bearings, 34 inches per crank. I believe it has 25 pounds of drag, something like that. Yeah, you're going to want a pretty substantial sized reel when you're musky fishing. I know a lot of guys, they use spinning reels or older style bait casting reels, which is fine, whatever your preference is. But for me personally, I wanted to get a decent size bait casting reel, and this thing has plenty of drag to be able to fight a fish. If you have the drag fully set, you're not going to have any line pulled out when you're fighting anything. And really smooth reeling, whatnot, and it's great for casting any size lure that you want to. And yeah, that's the reel I have.
The one thing to talk about or go along with rod and reel selection is your line selection. So the bigger the baits you have, the heavier line you're going to want on your reel. So right now I have 80-pound Power Pro braided line. But basically I have 80-pound braid on because it's going to better support heavier lures like big rubber.
Yep.
When you have that weaker line like 65-pound or 50-pound, heavy big rubber is going to wear that line down, and eventually it's going to snap on a cast and you're going to lose a lure.
That size line will work. Of course, you could bring in a musky on 10-pound model.
Oh,
it's been done before, but when you're using a bigger high-performance reel like this, you're going to want a line specifically rated for that reel and for your rod. Like, what's your rod rated for?
It's rated for 40 to 80.
40 to 80 pounds. So yeah, he could go heavier than 80, but that might compromise his casting ability and what kind of lures he can throw with this lure.
Oh yes.
You can put up to a 100-pound braid on it if that's what you're comfortable with. If you want to have that extra security of that higher poundage test of a line, then yeah, 100% go for it. And
yes,
but for leaders, there's all sorts of different kinds of musky leaders out there. You got steel leaders, you've got fluorocarbon leaders like this one. I'm not sure what pounded test this is, but they make them up to 80. Yeah, 80 to 150. I've heard of. Obviously they get higher than that, and this is a short one. You can get these things up to about like 3 feet long, maybe even longer. You can custom make them.
So we got 12-pound or not 12-pound. 12-inch fluorocarbon leaders. I think they're 150-pound test. Just fluorocarbon. it's a little more versatile than steel leaders, just not as.
Yeah, steel leaders can get pretty beat up when you catch a fish with them. They'll get pretty bent up and everything.
Very bent.
Yep.
And it is not. It doesn't. You can't bend it back to be straight.
Yeah,
it's going to be all. It's kind of stuck like this.
Yeah.
But
it'll weaken it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it will.
No, it won't. Not if you don't ruin the temper on it.
But basically, this steel leader's all bent up, and it did its job. It's not going to get cut by a musky, but when it gets all bent up, it's going to lose its shape.
But yeah, with fluorocarbon leaders, I have heard stories of big muskies slicing through them with their teeth, but with the clear fluorocarbon, that might entice a fish to bite even a little bit more, and your chances of a fish biting through this are very, very slim. It's like getting struck by lightning. It does not happen very often at all.
Hey, look, a duck.
Oh yeah, hey buddy.
But yeah, so I mean, just get the really high pound test fluorocarbon leaders, like 150 pound. I mean, there's the chances of a musky come through a 150 pound test leader, very low.
And it's not gonna snap. There's no way.
No,
they come. There's a lot of different brands. Whatever you guys like, whatever you guys decide you like.
They'll determine the type of snaps you have for your lures.
But yeah, that's basically it. And we can also always go over this more once we start musky fishing and when we catch more fish on them. But yeah, that's just a basic of leader and line selection.
Yes.
All right, so for all you musky fly fishermen out there, we got a little sneak peek segment for you.
I don't think this would be for musky fly fishermen. I think it would be for people getting into musky fly fishing.
Oh yeah, that too. Anybody who wants to get into musky fly fishing, we will show you a couple tips and tricks with our musky fly rods. For me personally, I have a St. Croix Legend Elite Series 12 weight fly rod. Some might consider it to be a little bit big for musky fishing because this thing could have a couple 100-pound tarpon in the Florida Keys, but this is what I like to use because I can cast very, very big flies extremely easily with it. I don't have any flies with me unfortunately at the moment, but I use big streamers anywhere from 12 to 14 inches long. So yeah, and I have a big reel on here. It's rated for 11 to 12 weight rods. Big fly line, big leader, everything like that. This is a 9-foot rod. It's not weighted for any specific weight of lures because you're not casting it normally like a normal bait caster. And yeah.
All right, and I've got a wild water fishing. I think it's AX 910 4 90-4.
It's an off-brand.
Yeah, it's kind of an off-brand. I wanted to get into fly fishing, so I just looked up, musky fly rod combos, and this is what I found. It's a 9 to 10 weight. That's pretty much all there is to be said. The reel came with it, 9 to 10 weight. All of the stuff came with it. Reel, line, everything, rod, of course. But it should work good for muskies and big pike. So that's all I'm asking for.
Yeah,
just to catch a fish on it.
It's a 9 to 10 weight. I started fishing for big predator fish with an 8 weight up in Canada for big pike. I ended up landing a 40-incher on an 8 weight, so he should be able to do that just fine. No, the brand of this reel is a Redington Behemoth. It goes up to, I believe, 30 pounds of drag, actually. You can tighten this thing down all the way, and you can't even pull the line out. So it's rated for big saltwater, and that will work just fine for muskies because they're basically like a saltwater fish of freshwater in North America. I mean, they're a super predator up here, but yeah. That's about it. And you guys will see us using our fly rods a lot more in future videos. There's going to be a teaching section of me teaching Matt how to fly fish, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully no hooks end up in anybody. I already had one fly hook in my leg earlier this season. I did not want to do that again.
That's the point of the first aid kit we mentioned earlier.
I've been wearing pads on my legs and all around my body. So stay tuned for more fly fishing content in the future.
Well, the next topic is lure selection. So after you get your rod, reel, and all your tools, now you need some lures. So what else are you gonna catch fish on? A block of wood? Well, actually you can, but you're gonna want some fancy lures to add to a future tackle box. So, Luke, do you want to talk about some of the different styles of lures out there?
All right, come on over here, Mac, and we'll take a little look. So as you can see, I have a pretty large array of lure selection in my box. I kind of purposely did this. I'm going to keep this half all rubber baits, this half all other styles. So some examples can be, I have bulldogs here, I have medusas here. I'll take one out and show it to you. All sorts of different kinds of colors. There's more colors you could think of, custom ones, anything. This is one of my favorites, Fire Tiger. I've caught a lot of fish on this pattern before. I'll put it in there later. And then any kind of swim baits, stuff like that. Big rubber. Big rubber has always worked well for me. I've done a lot of fishing below dams on the rivers around where I live, and that's all I use. With the heavy current and the deeper water, you're going to want something that gets down deep into the water column really fast. It doesn't get swept down. So I've always used big rubber below dams and whatnot. And then when you're on lakes, or if you're wade fishing on a different part of the river or something like that where the water may be a little bit slower, you can use a lot of other kinds of lures. For example, bucktails, one of the most popular kinds of musky lures out there. every single musky fisherman in the world has bucktails in their arsenal. Yeah, they get tangled in boxes like this a lot, unfortunately. But yeah, bucktails, great lure. Do not fish without them. Top water. Excuse my language, but this is actually called a fat bastard. That's literally what the lure is called. This is their, I believe they have a model slightly bigger than this, and this thing is pretty good size. You can see how big it is compared to my hand. You can cast these getting near the length of a football field, and they will get attention from fish. I've had a lot of action on this lure right here. But yeah, anything top water is very good for muskies, especially in the summertime when the water temperature is warmer and their metabolism is up. They're going to be trying to eat anything that goes by them, so if you're reeling on the surface, and they might go after it. Muskies go after baby ducks and stuff swimming across all the time, like squirrels and snakes and whatnot. So yeah, do not forget about top water. Yep.
Top water baby duck.
Baby duck.
So what do you guys got to throw in the spring?
In the springtime, I would say we'll throw stuff that's smaller because the fish are not going to be super hungry. They're going to be putting all of their energy into spawning. So we'll probably throw smaller presentations, whatnot, maybe like bait fish, swim baits, small jerk baits, stuff like that.
Small top water when it gets warmer out.
Yeah, speaking of jerk baits, you got like big grandma baits like this. You can use these for trolling or casting and whatnot. Twitch baits.
Jerk baits also coming like style with glide baits.
Yep, glide baits are very...
This is a Phantom Lure glide bait. That's a big one. This is a small one.
Yeah, glide baits are very cool. When you reel them in, they kind of go like this in the water.
We'll demonstrate some lures here.
Yeah. Once we start fishing and whatnot, and even maybe a little bit later in this video, we'll show you what these look like. Suics, probably one of my favorite lures. This is actually given to me by my grandfather, and I've caught quite a few muskies on this past season. These come in all sorts of different sizes and colors. This is one of my favorite, the Fire Tiger pattern. As you can see, it's got a ton of teeth marks in it, so you can use these in lakes, rivers, any kind of fishing conditions you want. They're great lures for that.
Here's another color Suic. Yep. This one is actually a custom color from a local business of ours, Tats and Tackle. Check them out. This is actually a crappie pattern put onto a Suic, so it's actually a lifelike pattern that they have for a bunch of different lures, but this Suic I'm very excited to use this season because of that color.
Yep. Jerk baits, anything like that. And then
we got a little swim baits or some of our bait fish. This is a Savage Gear foreplay. It just looks like a real fish in the water when you're reeling, so you just straight retrieve it.
Yeah, here's a silly looking one. These are beavers by Beaver Baits. They're not the cheapest lures. They can be quite pricey, but they look quite cool in the water. This is their normal size, I believe, and they have 2 sizes bigger than this. They come in all sorts of different colors. I have a white one, and then I have an orange one in here. Funny story about this orange one. I ended up catching a fish like 3 casts after I ended up buying this thing. I bought it, we went fishing, probably 20 minutes later, and within 3 casts I caught a fish on it. So what does that go to show you? Probably more luck than skill, but...
Here's kind of a rubber jerk bait too. This is a Chaos Tackle Pegasus.
Yep.
Basically, if you know what ripping rats are, that's what this is, except it's rubber. So basically, when it's in the water, if you straight retrieving, it's just shaking, vibrating really, really aggressively as you reel it. And then when you rip it through the water, just big rip and then sinks fast. Big rip and very, very annoying bait in the water for fish. So this thing can get them angry and trigger a big bite.
Yep, and obviously we're not going to be able to take out every single lure in our boxes at the moment, but as we're fishing, when season starts, we can show you what we're using at that specific day and time, what lure we caught a certain fish on and whatnot. But yeah, I know it can be quite overwhelming when you look at all these lures in our boxes, and let's say if you walk into a big musky shop or something like that, you're going to see more lures than you can ever imagine in there, and all sorts of different brands and kinds and different lures for different applications. And yeah, it can be quite overwhelming, but don't overcomplicate it. Find lures that you like to use and use those lures, and whatever lures you have that you catch fish on personally, keep sticking with those. You don't need to try something new if you don't think it's going to work for you. So
yeah, at the beginning, definitely just stick to the basics. You know, your bucktails, maybe the first 3 baits I got from Muskies was one mini-sized Medusa. Actually showed you a big Medusa, so just a smaller one. I got a musky-sized Whopper Plopper and a Joe Booker bucktail. None of those original baits are still in my tackle box. They are gone.
This guy likes to get snagged a lot.
Yes.
When we wade fish.
But I've replaced them all with other lures, but just stick with the basics at first. And then as you gain more knowledge and have more experience in your belt, catch a few muskies, add some more baits to your box. But how are you going to store your baits? You're going to need big tackle boxes.
Big, expensive tackle box.
Yes. Come around.
I'll come around you.
This is the Lakewood Products Monster Musky Box. It's huge. Basically on the inside, it's got all these little removable dividers that you can hang, or basically you hang your baits on. I'm gonna have to fix that later. But basically all the lures, you just hang them vertically by their hooks, and they just kind of hang down. That way bucktails, all the tinsel staying downwards and drying out properly. And what's actually nice about these for bucktails is they have little bucktail holders. They're trying to go out at an angle so you can hold your bucktails the right way. That way they're not hanging upside down and the tinsel's drying the wrong way.
Yep, and you guys can take these out if you want to. If you want to clean the bottom of the box. Mine's a lot more dirty than his is because mine's gotten put to use more.
Yes.
But yeah, you can take all these out if you want. You can rearrange them in any pattern that you want. Let's say if you want to take this one out and have a little bit more space right here, you can 100% do that.
And the best part of these Lakewood boxes, excuse me, Luke.
Yep.
I'm going to show you with your box. They are virtually indestructible. These things, not only do they float when they're fully loaded, they serve as fully functioning benches.
We were sitting on these when we were sucker fishing past November. These are our chairs.
These things also, I won't dirty yours up, but they work as basically casting.
Stool.
They work as stools and casting stools. So I mean, this thing's supporting a 200+ pound man right now. I mean, and this thing's not budget.
If it caves in, you're buying me a new one.
It won't. But Lakewood products, they come out with excellent size or excellent quality tackle boxes. They have multiple sizes. Just we went big with Monster Musky sizes.
And here, Mac, you can come in closer. I'll show you a couple other things. These boxes, they come with nice side pockets like this, a big one and a slightly smaller one on both sides. You have a large back pocket, fit whatever you want back there, and all these pockets have nice foam on the inside to keep whatever you put in good condition. In the front here, there's 2 slots right here. This is where I keep my pliers, hook sharpener, other set of pliers, screwdriver, anything like that. And then on the inside, let's say if you want to put fishing maps in here, cover this with stickers, whatever you want. It's got a nice
Speaking of which, maps and stickers.
Yep, it's got a nice plastic lining where you can keep stuff inside there. Yeah, really good boxes. They keep moisture out. And yeah, if you really want to look for a good musky box, definitely look for a Lakewood Monster Musky box or any kind of Lakewood tackle boxes. They are a great company to invest into.
They are also made in the USA.
Yep.
They have like medium-sized tackle boxes, small ones. They even have one that can go around the post of a boat or a boat seat.
Yep.
So they have all sorts of kind of boxes and excellent quality. You can't go wrong with one. But if you don't quite have the budget for it, you just get little Plano boxes. I mean, Matt's using one of my grandpa's Plano boxes, or you can just throw yourself in a big Plano tray. However, you run the risk of your lures getting very tangled.
Yeah, and your lures, if they have a nice paint job, if you put them in a box like that, they'll be banging up against each other and they can get damaged. But yeah, don't be intimidated by the price of something like this. You do not need a box like this whatsoever. This is just what we chose to do because we had the money to buy them, and they're a great box to have.
Great box to have, yes.
But yeah, any tackle box will work as long as you are comfortable with it.
Yeah, and so one thing we gotta talk about with lures is every time you cast and bring your lure in, you want to do what's called a figure 8 at shore at both sides. So as I bring my lure in here, basically you take it and you do one big turn and you basically just loop it around and basically just draw an 8 in the water with your lure. Basically what that does is any fish that is following your lure, oh, oops, it's a little shallow here.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, that's destroyed. But basically what that does is when a fish is following your bait up to boat side or up the shore, it's kind of deciding whether or not it wants to go for that bait. So doing that turn might just trigger it to, okay, now's the time, and bite it. Some people don't always like to do figure 8s. Some people that don't really do them, but so like what they do is when they bring it in, they just do a quick turn and then they stop. And if there's nothing, if it doesn't bite on that turn, they give up.
Here, let me see around. I'll talk about a couple things. And a couple little different variations of the figure 8. Obviously, the classic 8 that Colin just talked about. I prefer doing this with smaller fish because a smaller fish is going to be able to make those figure 8 turns a lot easier. If you have a really big fish, like a 45-inch plus fish following it, it's not going to be able to make those figure 8 turns. So I prefer to just do a big circle like this. Let's say if I'm coming in, usually I'll go this way right here. I'll come in on this side, then I'll just do a big loop like this. And depending on the water depth that you're fishing in, you can either do it just below the surface, you can stick your rod way down in there until it's about halfway submerged and do it like that. All depends on what you prefer and where you're fishing. But yeah, a figure 8 will definitely increase your chances of getting a bite way more than you think, because those fish, they can be very finicky following up your lure, and that sporadic motion of the lure going in a loop like that can trigger a bite. And one other thing, the reason why we always say figure 8 after every single cast is because you're not always going to be able to see the fish following your lure. Let's say if you're fishing really dark, dirty, murky water, that fish could be 6 to 10 feet below your lure looking at it, and you'd never see it. And if you took your lure out and didn't figure 8, that fish is just going to swim off and not even think about your lure. But let's say if you did a couple loops of the figure 8 a few times, that fish might decide, okay, now I'm going to bite, and just shoot out of nowhere and grab it. I've had that happen personally, so I have remembered to figure 8 after every single cast, and I punch myself in the face if I forget to figure 8 after a cast. So yeah, it's a really good habit to get into, and just, you don't even have to be musky fishing doing it. Just practice it along the shore, stuff like that, and yeah, definitely.
Half the times I do it walleye fishing just to keep it in my system.
Yep.
Even when you're on a boat too, like just figure 8ing, because even half the time when you're musky fishing or just fishing in general, sometimes musky just sit right underneath your boat, using it as a sort of like shade and cover from either the sunlight or just the shade might darken the water enough where bait fish can't see it. And so you just pull a lure right out of the water at your boat, chase the opportunity away from a fish hiding there to just strike. So definitely figure 8 after every cast.
Don't forget to figure 8. Get good at it. And
even just a classic 7 or a big loop.
Yep. Get good at it and make it part of your habit when you're musky fishing, because it will pay off.
Yes. All right, so the next big topic is fishing conditions. Whether you're looking at, you gotta look at your seasons, you gotta look at time of day and your location. All that good stuff, but it all starts with what season you're currently fishing in. Whether that's spring, summer, fall, and some places you can fish for them in winter. But it all starts with the season. Each season determines how you're going to fish for these muskies. The fish at 10,000 casts. The first season of the year is spring. At least that pretty much most, but you can fish for muskies. And it usually starts post-spawn, but in some areas you can fish for them pre-spawn and during the spawn. Around here, we can't fish for them until after they're all spawned out. But at that time, they're all exhausted from basically laying a bunch of eggs and fertilizing those eggs. So you're going to want to throw smaller lures at them because they are not looking for big meals. They're just looking to kind of just gain a little bit of energy back after all they've expelled during spawning. So you're going to want to throw little lures at them, small like snack size stuff for them. And another thing around the spring is you can finally start throwing top water. Usually you want to wait for that until after you start seeing baby ducks and baby geese.
As bad as that sounds, it's true.
Yes. They devour ducklings and goslings.
Is that what those things are called?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, I hate geese that much more now.
So that's when you can start throwing top water, but you don't want to start throwing smaller stuff. So, your smaller jerk baits, smaller top water. You're not too much into rubber yet because the rubber tends to be a little bit bigger baits. But if you have rubber, throw the smallest stuff you got. Smaller bucktails, all that sort of stuff.
Yep, and one other thing to chime in for springtime fishing, you're going to want to slow your retrieval way down, because as Colin said, these fish are going to be really drained, not too much energy after spawning, so the slower you can retrieve your lure, the better chance you have of getting a fish's attention and that they're going to bite. And that changes from season to season. So
basically just want to hang it right in front of their face so they can just clamp onto it.
Yes. So you're going to want to go to locations where muskies spawn. They're going to be in shallower water, probably lurking in weed beds too.
Moving up rivers.
They're going to move up into the shallower ends where it's warmer. Lots of sunlight would be really good for them too, so that way their metabolism can kind of kick into gear.
Yes. And I guess the next season.
All right, we'll talk about summer now. One of my most favorite times to fish for muskies.
Summer section, so you have to take your shirt off.
No, I'm not doing that. It's too cold out here right now.
Oh, now it's too cold.
But yeah, summer fishing muskies is probably my favorite time to fish, and a lot of other muskie anglers can say the same thing. Their metabolisms are skyrocketed through the roof, so they're going to be extremely hungry, eating multiple times a day, and yeah, pretty much any lure selection you can think of will work in summer. Rubber, bucktails, topwater, jerk baits, anything like that is going to catch you a muskie in the summertime if you know where to fish. But yeah, summertime obviously has the most sporadic weather conditions, and we'll talk about that in a little while here. But yeah, Summertime is definitely probably my favorite time to fish for muskies. So yeah, we'll kick on to the next one.
One thing I was going to add to the summer one is temperature.
Yep.
It kind of goes in with weather, but I know a lot of people won't fish for muskies if it's above 75 degrees, just because it puts a lot of stress on the fish.
But that does not mean you can't catch one. I've heard of some giant muskies being caught in water.
Sometimes they can be super aggressive in that hot weather.
Yep.
Other times they'll be very lethargic.
Yep. You just got to kind of keep in mind, longevity of the fish and safe handlings to keep that fish alive, so it'll be there for next season, hopefully, and to keep it moving. So, and then next up we got the fall. That's me. So with the fall, they're really getting beefed up for the wintertime, so they're kind of like water bears. So they want to eat a lot of food, so that's when you kind of want to get your big baits out, your big rubbers, just a nice 5-course meal right in front of them. They'll follow it in. I've had actually my first follow this past fall in, when was that? When did we go to Tomahawk? October?
End of October.
End of October. I had my first follow. It was so cool. I didn't catch that fish though. It was kind of stupid. And then I immediately snagged that bait on a sturgeon. So all sturgeon, you're dead to me. But yeah, they're gonna start eating a lot more frequently per se with bigger meals. So they're trying to bulk up, and and then towards the end of the fall is kind of when it kicks over into my favorite time to fish for muskies, because it becomes really prevalent if you fish with live bait. So big suckers.
Sucker fishing,
That's my kind of fishing all day.
You can fish suckers from September all the way through the season's close in December, but our favorite time to do it is probably in November.
Yes.
Yep, towards the end of November.
You can do it offshore, you can do it in a boat, and yeah, those fish, they're not going to be super aggressive for artificial lures that time of year. They can be, depending on where you are, but at least where we were last fall on the Wisconsin River, sucker fishing was amazing through the roof. So
even at that point, those fish, the amount of feeding windows they had decreased dramatically. They were not feeding very much. They were maybe had a feeding window going on once a day, where you had the opportunity to catch one. Rather than in the summer, you could be out there all day and they're feeding all day. Fall, it was towards the end of fall, it was like maybe one feeding window a day that we had to be out there for.
And there's exceptions to that in all seasons.
Oh, of course.
Keep that in mind.
Depends on the fish, depends on the location, depends on the weather. But as it's really getting colder, their metabolism is dropping, so they don't need a lot of food. They just need a few big meals to help pack on that fat.
They're not about that mass production. No, they're producing mass.
So, do we want to talk about locations now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll actually start with that. One of my favorite places to catch a muskie is in a river system. I have a river that runs 150 yards from my house I can walk down. Tons of big muskies in it. I basically grew up catching muskies on a river. My very first muskie was actually on a river in between two dams. So yeah, you're not going to catch quite as like fat of fish in a river because it's going to be current. Obviously, they're going to be fighting against that, getting slimmer. But the fish in rivers are always so beautiful, so green and whatnot, and yeah, the water conditions are always going to be changing. You'll never probably catch the same fish twice because it could be in one spot one time of the summer and then you might catch it again 10 miles upriver, something like that. And yeah, river fishing's awesome. Go do it.
Yes, it is a lot different than lakes. Lakes, muskies usually tend to stay in the same locations, and obviously for spawn they'll either move to shallow areas or even they'll move upstream in some rivers if there's some close by. But lake fishing, we all don't have the most amount of experience with that. We more so fish rivers
I got quite a bit of lake fishing.
Yeah, he does. More so rivers. But the best place to fish in the rivers is dams, because that's where a lot of them are prevented from going further upstream. And they kind of sit there and wait for bait fish.
Lots of bait fish congregate below dams, and the predators are going to be following them.
Otherwise, when you're looking in lakes, you're going to want to base where you're fishing off of structure. So you're looking for large weed beds, you're looking for a bunch of rocks, like if there's rock walls, you're going to be looking for steep drop-offs. Well, maybe not steep, but at least different drop-offs, like where it gets a lot deeper, maybe deeper than muskies will even go.
And any kind of depth changes on a lake will be really good. A lot of times you can catch them by docks or anything like that, any kind of man-made structure that's put into the water. And a lot of times you'll actually catch them suspended out over deep water chasing bait schools. I've heard of them being caught over like close to 100 feet of water, but they're going to be in like the top 20 to 30 feet where those bait pools are. So yeah, don't overlook fishing over open water. I know it can be kind of intimidating to think of that, but I mean, definitely don't overlook that strategy as well.
Another thing with river systems is they are very much predatory fish.
Oh, yeah.
So they will sit behind sandbars, rock bars, anything,
Big logs.
you know, anything that pretty much they'll sit behind it and face right up river and just wait for the small bait to swim right past them, and they'll swoop out and snag them. So
That's where the eddy is, where it's breaking the current.
any break in the current is a really good spot to
It's a
sit.
lot easier to kind of pinpoint where you think a muskie would be in a river than it is on a lake.
Also, typically, a little less water to cover. At least
Yeah.
if you're looking like shoreline to shoreline.
Fish are more congregated in rivers.
Yes.
Yep.
But yeah, so basically in lakes, you're looking for structure. In rivers, you want to fish dams and pretty much any breaks in current. That's going to be their best spots to find muskies.
Okay.
And then I guess the last big topic.
Moon phases, every muskie fisherman's favorite topic.
I'm out.
Yeah, he doesn't believe it. He's not that superstitious, unlike Colin and I.
But yet, how do we catch this fish? Moon phase.
What?
Yeah, your big muskie was on a moon phase.
I don't believe you.
It was.
It was.
Yeah, I'm.
Coincidence.
Neither of us are probably really sure on the science about it, but it's something about.
It's something to do with the gravitational pull.
Yeah,
I've heard.
the position of the moon if outside of the Earth with a gravitational pull can sometimes really trigger a fish to just all of a sudden bite out of nowhere
Yep.
when you wouldn't even expect it. And
No.
we both have the Musky Hover Fishing app on our phones downloaded, and that actually shows the moon phases day in, day out.
Of your specific location.
Yep.
So you want to like type. Basically, it has a little setting where you kind of type in the, or at least kind of set the type of water body you're fishing, kind of where it's located, and it'll tell you the moon, at least where the moon is at, when it's setting, when it's rising, when it's overhead. And I mean, the moon phase, that's where you hear a lot of like full moon is the time to go for muskies. It's like, it's just, I guess, the most popular time to go for muskies because that's just something about a full moon. It's kind of like werewolves.
Yeah, do not overlook moon phases.
No.
You can be fishing all day long and not see anything, but let's say if you have a moon rise or a moon set coming up, that can open up a 30-minute, 45-minute long feeding window, or even less, a couple-minute feeding window for those fish. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I mean, it does work, and that's all that matters.
It has worked.
Yep.
I mean, the same with sun phases. They're not as prevalent, or at least not as effective.
Sunrise and sunset.
You hear that all the time with other fish. Oh, you got to be out there before sunrise and for sunset.
Yep.
After sunset.
And if you can get out there when a sun phase and a moon phase actually line up, that is
prime.
You want to be positioning yourself over a very high producing area at that moment, and your chances of catching one are skyrocketed. And that also accounts for any kind of moon phase.
Yes.
If you can position yourself in a spot where you have very high confidence at catching a muskie, your chances are going to be very high that you're going to get one.
Yes, a lot of our muskies this year were caught off moon phases.
They were on moon phases.
Almost all of them were.
Yeah.
And then on top of moon phases, you also want to look at weather.
Yep.
So like big storm, low pressure systems, rain
in,
fronts, cold fronts. You're going to want to look at fishing before those, right as those systems are just hitting, right before the storm comes in.
Or after they're leaving. And you could even catch them in the middle of a storm. I mean, I don't know how many people would want to fish through pouring rain or hail and lightning. It's not the very smartest thing to do, but it has been done, and people have caught them in those.
Some people do truly believe the crappier the weather, is better for musky fishing.
Yep, and let's say if you're out there on a really super windy day and there's huge whitecaps, 3-foot, 4-foot rollers out there, what you're going to want to do is position yourself on the wind-blown shoreline, because whatever shoreline that the wind is blowing into, that's going to be pushing all the bait towards that side of the lake, and the predators are going to follow them there.
Exactly.
So fish wind-blown shorelines. It's not very fun. You're going to get banged around, beat up on your boat, but I mean, it can be worth it.
Yeah. But yeah, for weather, it's pretty much how you fish for other fish. You just want to fish those low pressure systems before and after storms, overcast days. Sometimes, I mean, you really don't want to be out there in the hottest days, but you can still catch them on those hot days, but your chances do go down typically.
Yeah, I had a couple of musky experiences this past summer when we were fishing. We were in Lake Vermilion, and needless to say, it was complete bluebird days, about 95 degrees, maybe like 85% humidity. Yeah, that's not fun to fish when you can feel the sweat just dripping down your face. Yeah, that's not very fun. So I would much rather take a cooler day or an overcast day, but you can still catch them on blue sky days. It doesn't really matter.
So
really,
we've caught them on blue sky days.
Really, it's all up to the fish. The fish really don't care in some instances.
In the end, it really is a game of luck and being at the right place at the right time and presenting exactly what it wants. But you got all these other factors to consider that can help increase your chances of catching the fish of a lifetime.
Yep.
And yeah, that's pretty much
it.
Yeah, that's pretty much all on that. Well, thanks for checking out today's video. I hope that the bunch of information we just gave you help you get on some muskies this year, whether you're new to the sport or you're more experienced than us, which that doesn't take much to be more experienced than us. But The whole goal of this was to help beginner musky fishermen get into the sport and at least have like a small little tutorial to the basics, just to help. We've all been there.
Yeah, we know it was a lot to take in. You probably just watched a close to an hour-long video. That we threw a lot of information at you, but take everything with a grain of salt. I mean, we're no experts by any means. We're learning more every single time we go out.
Definitely check out other people's input on it. You can ask your local bait shops, people that you know that musky fish. You can always look at other people's beginner musky videos.
Yeah. Everybody's gonna have different opinions on this. We just wanted to share with you guys what we prefer on everything and what we've learned from our own experiences. So yeah, and you guys will have your own experiences too once you get into this sport and start catching fish.
And maybe you'll be teaching new people how to musky fish eventually.
Oh yeah.
Just like we have been doing. But yeah, you know the usual. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like, comment below what your favorite lure type is for muskies, and we'll catch you all next time. We'll see you guys later. Boy, that's a hazard.